Why are people like you even at this party?
The owner of the mansion looked down on a black woman when she appeared. But disrespecting Angela Washington will make Victoria Bradford regret everything.
Security! Where are you? Drag this low-born woman out at once!
Angela refuses to be patient.
I'll make all of you regret this.
What's inside the briefcase will make Victoria lose everything. Security, remove this woman immediately. Victoria Bradford's voice slices across the Hamptons estate. Her Cartier watch glints as she waves dismissively. I will not have our family's reputation destroyed by some crasher looking for handouts. Affables descents. Angela Washington doesn't move. Ma'am, I believe there's been a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Victoria steps closer, her voice dropping to a vicious whisper. Listen carefully. This estate is worth $30 million. These guests represent old American families. You do not belong here. I apologize for any inconvenience. Victoria's eyes narrow. The audacity. Walking onto private property like you own the place, she snaps her fingers at approaching security. Escort her out now, before she tries to steal something or embarrass herself further. Angela's hands remain steady at her sides. Her voice carries quiet grace. Of course, as you wish. Victoria has no idea she just threatened the wrong woman. Angela doesn't leave. Instead, she walks toward the garden path like she's done it 1,000 times before. Her steps follow the exact route to avoid loose flagstones that would trip other guests. The catering manager freezes mid-con conversation. Mrs. Bradford, that's what Victoria whirls around. Nothing, ma'am. The manager's face goes pale. He busies himself with champagne flutes, stealing glances at Angela. Victoria notices the staff's strange behavior. Servers whisper among themselves, pointing discreetly. The head groundskeeper removes his cap when Angela passes, then quickly looks away when Victoria stares. Why is everyone acting so weird? Victoria mutters. Chief. Angela moves through the estate with unsettling familiarity. She avoids the rose garden's irrigation sprinklers without looking down, takes the shortcut past the carriage house that only longtime residents know. Her fingers brush the oak tree where someone carved initials decades ago. Victoria follows at a distance, her irritation growing. That woman, us studying our property like she's planning to rob us. The wedding planner approaches nervously. Mrs. Bradford, perhaps we should what? Victoria's voice rises. Let some random woman sue our family's estate. I don't think so. Angela pauses at the reflecting pool. She stares. At the fountain, her grandfather installed in 1952. The brass nameplate reading Washington Estate was removed 20 years ago, but she remembers where it stood. An elderly valet approaches hesitantly. Miss Angela, is that really you? Victoria's head snaps around. Miss Angela, do you know this person, Thomas? Thomas's mouth opens and closes like a fish. That is speak up. She used to visit here a long time ago. His voice barely whispers, Chief. Angela turns toward Thomas with a gentle smile. Hello, Thomas. You're still taking care of the gardens beautifully. His eyes fill with tears. Miss, your father would be so proud. You look just like him. Victoria steps between them. I don't know what kinds of scam you're running, but this conversation is over. She grabs Thomas's arm. Get back to work now. Angela watches the exchange without a word. Her composure remains perfect even as Victoria treats the elderly man like property. More staff members begin to recognize her. Sheesh. Hushed conversations spread through the service areas. The head butler looks ready to faint. Two housekeepers clutch each other's arms, whispering prayers. What is wrong with everyone today? Victoria demands. The wedding coordinator clears her throat. Mrs. Bradford, the ceremony begins in 1 hour. Perhaps we should focus on final preparations. Not until this situation is resolved. Victoria points an accusatory finger at Angela. She's making our entire staff nervous. They can barely do their jobs. Angela continues her quiet tour of the property. She knows which floorboards creak in the east wing, where the hidden safe sits behind the library portrait, which bedroom window offers the best view of sunrise over Long Island Sound. This knowledge terrifies the staff more than Victoria's threats ever could. Victoria notices their fear and misinterprets it completely. See, even if they know something's not right about her, Angela pauses at the main house's rear entrance. The brass doorknob still bears her family's monogram, though someone tried to file it away. She traces the faded letters with one finger. Thomas watches from across the courtyard, his face a mask of guilt and sorrow. The storm is coming, and Angela Washington stands at its center. This has gone far enough. Victoria storms across the terrace, her heels clicking like gunshots on marble. Security, I want her removed from the property this instant. Two uniformed guards approach Angela reluctantly. Ma'am, we need you to come with us. Of course. Rises from the garden bench gracefully. Victoria's voice carries across the lawn deliberately loud. I will not have wedding crashers disrupting our family celebration. The absolute nerve of some people. Nearby guests turn to stare. Their conversations halt mid-sentence. Is that woman a problem? Asks Constance Whitmore, adjusting her emerald necklace. Victoria seizes the moment. She wandered onto our property uninvited, claims she belongs here. Her laugh sounds like breaking glass, as if we would associate with her type. The phrase hangs in the air like poison. Angela continues walking toward the exit, flanked by security. Her spine remains straight, her dignity intact. Good riddance, mutters Harrison Blackwell loud enough for others to hear. These people have no respect for boundaries. His wife nods approvingly. The entitlement is astounding, walking onto private property like she owns the place. More guests join the chorus of disapproval. Their voices grow bolder, cruer, probably looking for handouts or planning to steal something. Should have called the police immediately. Angela pauses at the garden gate. She turns back toward the house, memorizing faces, taking mental notes of who speaks, who stays silent, who looks away in shame. Victoria notices the careful observation. What are you doing? Why are you staring at our guests? I'm simply appreciating the gathering. Angela's voice remains calm as silk. Appreciating. Victoria's face flushes red. You mean intimidating? Making our guests uncomfortable with your presence. The wedding photographer lowers his camera nervously. He's captured the entire confrontation on film, but something tells him these images might matter later. Delete those photos. Victoria snaps. Victoria snaps. I won't have this embarrassment documented. Yes, ma'am. He quickly scrolls through his camera, but doesn't actually delete anything. Angela notices this exchange with interest. Her lawyer's instincts catalog every detail. Thomas, the groundskeeper, watches from behind a hedge, wringing his cap in weathered hands. Other staff members peer from windows, their faces etched with guilt. So why does everyone keep staring? Victoria demands, get back to work, all of you. The servers scatter but continue stealing glances at Angela. Their discomfort is obvious to anyone paying attention. Victoria's friend Margaret approaches. Darling, who was that woman? The staff seems terrified of her, some delusional person who thinks she belongs with decent society. Victoria's voice drips with contempt. The audacity of walking onto our property without invitation. How did she even get past the gate? Probably climbed the fence. These people have no respect for private property. Angela reaches the estate's main entrance. The iron gates bear the same Washington family crest that once adorned every building on the property. She runs her fingers across the metal scrollwork her great-grandfather commissioned in 1924. The security guard notices her gesture. His face goes white. "Ma'am, we should go in a moment." Angela studies the brass nameplate welded over the original family name. The cover job was sloppy, done in haste 20 years ago. Behind her, the wedding guests continue their satisfied chatter about removing the intruder. They congratulate themselves on protecting their social circle. Victoria addresses the crowd like a victorious general. "Ladies and gentlemen, please forgive the disruption. Some people simply don't understand their place in society." Applause ripples through the assembled elite. Angela finally steps through the gates, but instead of walking away, she moves to her car parked across the street. Chief, she opens the trunk and retrieves a leather briefcase. The security guard takes a step backward. "Ma'am, what's in the case?" Angela's smile is small and mysterious. Documentation. She walks back toward the gates with purposeful steps. The real confrontation is about to begin. Angela returns through the gates carrying her briefcase. "What now?" Victoria's voice rises an octave. "Security. She's back." "Ma'am, we escorted her out as requested, then escort her out again." Victoria's face reens with fury, and this time, make sure she stays gone. But Angela doesn't approach the main gathering. Instead, she walks calmly to an empty table at the reception's edge and sits down. The absolute audacity. Victoria turns to her guests. She's actually trying to crash our wedding reception. Margaret gasps dramatically. "Should we call the police?" "I'm considering it." Victoria pulls out her phone. This is harassment at this point. Angela opens her briefcase and begins reviewing documents. Her concentration is absolute professional. What is she reading? Harrison squints across the lawn. Looks like legal papers. Victoria's blood chills. Legal papers? What could she possibly? She stops herself. It's probably fake. Trying to intimidate us with props. A server approaches Angela's table hesitantly. She orders a glass of water, speaking quietly. Victoria marches over to intercept. "Absolutely not. Do not serve this woman anything." "But ma'am, she's sitting at a reception table." "I don't care where she's sitting, Chief. She is not a guest. She is a trespasser." Victoria's voice carries across the lawn. Nobody serves her. Nobody speaks to her. Is that clear? The server nods nervously and retreats. "Chief." Guests begin gathering in small clusters, their conversations growing louder and more vicious. The nerve of some people think she can intimidate us with that briefcase, probably planning to sue someone. That's what they do. Angela continues reading, apparently oblivious to the mounting hostility. Victoria coordinates her campaign like a military operation. She whispers instructions to staff members, points out Angela's location to arriving guests, ensures everyone knows to avoid the problem. The photographer circles the reception, but carefully avoids Angela's section. When his lens accidentally captures her in the background, Victoria appears instantly. "I told you to delete any photos of that woman." "Yes, ma'am. Just getting crowd shots. Get them from the other direction." A group of young socialites approach Angela's table, giggling. "Excuse me, but this is a private event. Angela looks up from her papers. Yes, I understand. Then why are you still here? The leader, a blonde in a pink dress worth more than most cars, crosses her arms. This isn't a public park. You're absolutely right. Angela's voice remains steady. So leave. I will when appropriate. The blonde's friends laugh mockingly. When appropriate. Who do you think you are? Angela returns to her documents without answering. How rude. Pink Dress turns to her companions. She thinks she's too good to talk to us. Their voices grow deliberately loud. Some people have no class, probably here looking for rich men or planning to rob the gift table. Victoria watches approvingly from across the lawn. Perfect. Let them handle it. More guests join the harassment campaign. They form a loose circle around Angela's table, their conversations designed to humiliate. I heard she climbed over the fence. Security should have arrested her immediately. This is what happens when you're too lenient with trespassers. Angela checks her watch, making notes on a legal pad. Her handwriting is precise, methodical. She's taking notes. Someone whispers urgently. The circle tightens. Voices grow sharper. What are you writing about us? You can't record private conversations. This is harassment. Angela closes her notepad calmly. I'm simply documenting my observations. Documenting? Victoria pushes through the crowd. Are you threatening us? Not at all. Just maintaining records. Records of what exactly? Angela's smile is enigmatic. Behavior patterns, social dynamics, power structures. The crowd exchanges nervous glances. Victoria's anger reaches a breaking point. You're trying to intimidate my guests with your amateur psychology nonsense. Well, it won't work. Of course not. Angela stands gracefully. That's not my intention. Then what is your intention? Angela gathers her papers methodically to observe how people treat those they perceive as powerless. Powerless? Victoria laughs harshly. Honey, you have no idea what real power looks like, don't I? The question hangs in the air like a challenge. Victoria feels the crowd's attention shifting. Security. Remove her now, or I'm calling the police myself. Wait. A new voice cuts through the tension. Detective Ray Coleman approaches from the parking area, his wedding invitation visible in his breast pocket. His eyes lock on Angela with instant recognition. His face goes completely white. Jesus Christ, he breathes. Angela, what are you doing here? Victoria spins around. You know this woman? Rai looks between Angela and the hostile crowd surrounding her. His police training kicks in, reading the situation instantly. Yeah, he says slowly. I know her. The crowd leans forward eagerly. Well, who is she? Ray's mouth opens, then closes. He looks at Angela, who gives the slightest shake of her head. He swallows hard. She's someone you don't want to mess with. But Victoria isn't finished with her victory lap yet. Someone I don't want to mess with. Victoria's laugh is shrill. Rai, darling, you're being dramatic. She's just some woman who wandered onto our property. Ray Coleman stares at Angela with something approaching awe. Ma'am, I had no idea you'd be here today. Hello, Detective Coleman. Angela's voice carries quiet warmth. Congratulations on your promotion. Thank you. He catches himself. Thank you, ma'am. The crowd notices his deference immediately. Ray Coleman is 6 feet of solid muscle, decorated police detective. He doesn't defer to anyone. Rai, what's wrong with you? Victoria demands. Why are you acting so strange? Ray removes his hat respectfully. Mrs. Bradford, perhaps we could discuss this privately. Discuss what? There's nothing to discuss. This woman is trespassing on our family property. Your property? Ray's eyebrows raise slightly. Of course, it's our property. The Bradford family has lived here for 20 years. Ray looks at Angela again. Her expression remains perfectly neutral. Rye. Victoria snaps her fingers like summoning a dog. Stop staring at her and do your job. Arrest her for trespassing. I can't do that. What do you mean you can't? You're a police officer. Mrs. Bradford, trust me on this. You don't want me to arrest her? The crowd murmurs in confusion. Margaret whispers urgently to Harrison. Why won't he arrest her? Victoria's voice rises to near hysteria. Ray Coleman, I've known you since you were in diapers. Your mother and I went to school together. Now arrest this woman, or I'm calling your supervisor. Ray's face hardens. Go ahead and call him. See what he says. What is that supposed to mean? It means some people are above your pay grade, Victoria. The insult hits like a physical blow. Victoria staggers backward. How dare you speak to me that way? How dare you speak to her that way? Rye nods toward Angela. Pink dress steps forward boldly. Who is she? Some kind of criminal you've arrested before? Ray's laugh is bitter. Lady, you have no idea. Then tell us. Rye looks at Angela questioningly. She gives the slightest nod. She's someone with more authority than anyone at this wedding. Authority? Harrison scoffs. What kind of authority could she possibly have? The kind you don't question. Victoria's confusion turns to rage. Stop speaking in riddles. If she's so important, why is she crashing our wedding? Maybe she's not crashing it. Of course, she's crashing it. We didn't invite her. Did you invite everyone who belongs here? The question silences the crowd. Angela checks her watch again. Detective Coleman, perhaps we should let them enjoy their celebration. Of course, ma'am. Whatever you think best. His continued deference is driving Victoria insane. Ray, what has gotten into you? Nothing. I just know who I'm dealing with. And who exactly are you dealing with? Ray looks around the circle of hostile faces. At the staff members watching nervously from the sidelines, at the mansion rising behind them like a monument to old money privilege. Someone who could change all your lives with a phone call. That's ridiculous. Is it? Ray's smile is grim. Mrs. Bradford, do you know who actually owns this property? Victoria's face goes white. What kind of question is that? A simple one. Who holds the deed to this estate? The Bradford family. Obviously. Obviously. Rye nods slowly. And you're sure about that? Of course I'm sure. It's our home. Angela closes her briefcase with a soft clicks. The sound seems louder than thunder in the sudden silence. Ray Coleman pulls out his phone. Mrs. Bradford, let me help clear this up. There's nothing to clear up, Victoria snaps. This is our property. Then, you won't mind if I run a quick property search. His fingers fly across the screen. Nassau County property records are public information. Victoria's eyes dart nervously. That's completely unnecessary, just being thorough. Ray's police training shows in his methodical approach. Let's see. 47 Meadowbrook Lane, Southampton. The crowd presses closer, sensing drama. Here we go. Ray's face goes grim. Interesting. What's interesting? Margaret demands. Rye looks at Angela, who nods. Permission. According to county records, this property was originally owned by James Washington, purchased in 1924. That's ancient history. Victoria waves dismissively. The Bradford family has owned this estate for decades. Actually, no. Ray continues scrolling. James Washington's estate was passed to his son, Robert Washington, in 1952, then to Robert's daughter. He pauses dramatically. Angela Washington. The silence is deafening. That's impossible. Harrison sputters. The Bradfords bought this property legally. Ray shakes his head. No sale recorded. The property transferred through inheritance to Miss Washington in 2003. Victoria's face drains of color. There must be some mistake in the records. County records don't lie. Ray's voice carries cop authority. But let's double check. He makes a phone call. Hey, Maria. Ray Coleman, can you pull the complete file on 47 Meadowbrook Lane? Yeah, I'll hold. While they wait, Angela opens her briefcase again. She removes a manila folder thick with documents. What are those papers? Pink Dress asks nervously. Property deeds, tax records, inheritance documentation. Angela's voice is library quiet. Would you like to see them? Victoria lunges forward. Don't show them anything. This is some kind of elaborate scam. Rai holds up his hand. Maria. Yeah, I'm here. He listens intently. No sales recorded. Property taxes paid by Angela Washington Trust. His eyes widened. For how long? 22 years? He hangs up slowly. Well, Victoria's voice cracks. Miss Washington has been paying property taxes on this estate since 2003. The crowd erupts in confused chatter. That's impossible, Victoria shrieks. We've been living here. We've been maintaining the property. Angela speaks for the first time. Without permission. Without what? You've been living on my property without permission for 20 years. Victoria's world tilts sideways. Your property? Your property? Angela removes a document from her folder. Original deed signed by my grandfather in 1924. Inheritance papers from my father's estate. Current property tax records. She spreads them on the table like playing cards. Examines them professionally. These look legitimate. Official seals, proper signatures, county stamps, they're forgeries. Victoria's voice rises to hysteria. Elaborate forgeries designed to steal our home. Ma'am, Ray's patience wears thin. Do you have any documentation proving your family owns this property? Victoria's mouth opens and closes like a fish. Of course, we do. It's in the safe somewhere. Then, perhaps, you should retrieve it. Angela checks her watch again. Detective Coleman, don't you think the wedding guests deserve to know the truth about where they're celebrating? The crowd shifts uncomfortably. They came for a society wedding, not a property dispute. Margaret whispers urgently. Victoria, just show them your deed. End this nonsense. It's not nonsense, Victoria hisses back. This woman is trying to steal our home. Ray's phone buzzes with a text. He reads it, then looks at Angela with something approaching reverence. Ma'am, I just received additional information about you. With your permission, should I share it? Angela considers carefully. Not yet, detective. Let's stay focused on the property issue. Of course, madam. His continued deference is driving the crowd crazy. Harrison steps forward aggressively. What additional information? Who is this woman? Someone with more authority than anyone here realizes. Rai repeats. Victoria sees her controls slipping away. Stop being cryptic. Either arrest her for trespassing or leave. I can't arrest someone on their own property. It's not her property. Victoria's scream echoes across the lawn. Wedding guests at distant tables turn to stare. Angela retrieves another document. Property survey from 1924. Note the boundaries. The oak tree with carved initials marks the northeast corner. She points to the massive oak where she'd paused earlier. The reflecting pool was installed in 1952 to commemorate my grandfather's military service. The brass nameplate was removed approximately 20 years ago, but you can still see the mounting holes. Every detail checks out. The crowd follows her descriptions like a guided tour. The Carriage House Foundation was poured by my great-grandfather in 1920. If you check the basement, you'll find his initials carved in the concrete. JW 1920. Victoria looks ready to vomit. You researched our property to make your story believable. I researched my property to reclaim what's mine. The word reclaim hits like a hammer blow. Thomas the groundskeeper approaches slowly, his cap in his weathered hands. Miss Angela, your father would be so proud of the woman you've become. Thomas, no. Victoria whirls around. Don't you dare speak to her. Mrs. Bradford, with respect, this young lady's family built this estate. Her grandfather hired my father in 1945. I've worked on these grounds for 40 years. The revelation stuns the crowd into silence. Her family owned this estate when mine was still in Ireland. Thomas continues quietly. The Washingtons were good people, fair people. They treated us like family. Victoria's face contorts with rage. Thomas, you're fired. Pack your things and get off our property. Actually, Angela's voice cuts through the tension. Thomas works for me. He has for 20 years. I've been paying his salary through the estate management and company. Another bombshell detonates. Ray nods. Confirmation. Property taxes, groundskeeper salaries, maintenance costs, all paid by the Angela Washington Trust. This is insane, Victoria screams. We live here. This is our home. You've been my tenants. Angela says calmly, without a lease, without permission, without paying rent. Have you ever wondered how someone could live on property they don't own for decades? Stay with me. This gets deeper. Angela removes the final document from her folder. 20 years ago, my father received a letter claiming the property had been sold to cover estate debt. The letter was signed by Bradford Estate Management. She holds up a copy. The letter was fraudulent. No debts existed. No sale occurred. The property remained in Washington family ownership. Victoria's knees buckle. She grabs Margaret's arm for support. The fraud was sophisticated, Angela continues. Forged documents, fake legal correspondence, even bribes to remove public records. Ray's cop instinct sharpen. Ma'am, are you saying the Bradford family committed fraud? I'm saying someone did. The crowd stares at Victoria with dawning horror. But Angela isn't finished revealing her true power yet. Victoria Bradford straightens her spine like a cobra preparing to strike. This is extortion. Her voice carries across the lawn with renewed authority. Years of commanding servants and intimidating staff flow back into her posture. Ladies and gentlemen, she addresses the crowd. We're witnessing a sophisticated con game. This woman has spent months, maybe years, researching our family to construct this elaborate fraud. Margaret nods vigorously. Victoria is right. She probably found old property records and built her story around them. Harrison joins the counterattack. The timing is suspicious. Showing up at a wedding with fake documents, hoping to catch us off guard. Angela remains seated, observing the coordinated response. Think about it logically, Victoria continues, warming to her theme. If she really owned this property, why wait until today? Why not contact us privately? Because she wanted maximum embarrassment, pink dress ads. Maximum leverage for her lawsuit. The crowd murmurs agreement. The familiar narrative of false accusation against respectable families resonates with their experience. Victoria pulls out her phone. I'm calling our family attorney, Richard Peaton of Peaton Hayes and Associates. He'll expose this fraud in minutes. She dials with theatrical precision. Richard Victoria Bradford, we have a situation. Yes, at the wedding, some woman claiming she owns our estate. Fake documents ache. Yes, please come immediately. Victoria hangs up triumphantly. Our lawyer is on his way. He's handled property disputes for 30 years. He'll know forgeries when he sees them. Ray Coleman shifts uncomfortably. Mrs. Bradford, maybe you should wait. Wait for what? To be swindled. Victoria's confidence soars. Ray, I understand she's fooled you with her act, but you're a police officer. Use your training. My training tells me your training should tell you to arrest someone attempting fraud. The crowd rallies behind Victoria's newfound strength. She's right, Harrison declares. This whole performance reeks of a setup. Margaret points an accusatory finger at Angela. Look at her sitting there so calmly. She planned this whole thing. Victoria seizes the momentum. Exactly. She researched our family, learned our wedding date, crafted fake documents, even bribed that old fool Thomas to support her story. Hey now, Thomas protests weakly. Shut up, Thomas. Victoria snaps. You're probably part of this scam. How much did she pay you? Angela speaks quietly. Mr. Thomas has been receiving his normal salary, nothing more. Normal salary from who? You don't have any money to pay salaries. Victoria's voice grows stronger with each word. Shh. Look at her, everyone. Does she look like someone who owns a $30 million estate? Where's her jewelry? Her designer clothes? Her expensive car? The crowd examines Angela's modest navy dress with renewed suspicion. Exactly. Margaret chimes in. Real wealth doesn't need to announce itself this desperately. Victoria approaches Angela's table like a predator. Where's your Rolls Royce? Your servants? Your security detail? Where are the trappings of real wealth? Angela's silence feeds their confidence. I'll tell you where. Victoria continues. In her imagination, this is what delusion looks like. People. Mental illness combined with criminal intent. Harrison nods sagely. We see this all the time. People who can't accept their station in life, so they construct elaborate fantasies. Pink dress laughs mockingly. She probably lives in a studio apartment and dreams about owning estates. The attacks grow more personal, more vicious. The entitlement is staggering. Margaret sneers, thinking she deserves what successful families have built. Victoria circles Angela like a shark. You know what this is really about? Jealousy. Pure simple jealousy of people who've earned their success. Mrs. Bradford. Rye tries to intervene. You should really stop. Stop what? Defending our family's property, our reputation, our right to live without harassment. Victoria's voice reaches a crescendo. This woman has disrupted our daughter's wedding, traumatized our guests, and attempted to steal our home with forged documents. I want her arrested for fraud, trespassing, and harassment. The crowd applauds spontaneously. Richard Petton will have her in jail by evening, Victoria declares. We'll sue for defamation, emotional distress, and attempted theft. When we're finished, she'll spend years in prison regretting this mistake. Angela checks her watch once more. What are you timing? Victoria demands. Your escape before the police arrive. Not at all. Victoria leans down, her face inches from Angela's. Listen carefully, whoever you are. You picked the wrong family to mess with. We have connections you can't imagine, lawyers who destroy you, judges who golf at our country club. I see. You see nothing. You're about to learn how real power works in this country. Victoria straightens triumphantly. Money talks, honey, and we have more of it than you'll see in 10 lifetimes. The crowd cheers Victoria's dominance. But Angela Washington checks her watch one final time and smiles. Actually, Mrs. Bradford, I think it's time you learned how real power works. She opens her briefcase and removes a single black folder. Ray Coleman sees the federal seal embossed on the cover and takes 3 steps backward. Jesus Christ, he whispers. Victoria, stop talking right now. But Victoria is drunk on her perceived victory. What now, Ray? Another fake document. Angela stands slowly, the black folder in her hands. The real demonstration of power is about to begin. Angela stares at the black folder in her hands. For a moment, the weight of 20 years crashes down on her shoulders. She remembers her father's phone call that terrible morning in 2004. Baby girl, something's happened to the house. His voice had been broken, confused. They say we don't own it anymore. They say there were debts, legal problems. I don't understand, Angela. My daddy built that house with his own hands. Victoria notices Angela's hesitation and pounces like a predator sensing weakness. What's wrong? Having second thoughts about your little scam? The crowd grows bolder, sensing victory. She's stalling. Harrison laughs, probably trying to figure out how to escape. Margaret steps closer. Look at her hands shaking. The guilt is eating her alive. Thief. Angela thinks about her father's funeral 3 years later. He died still believing he'd somehow lost the family estate. Died thinking he'd failed his ancestors, failed his daughter. Daddy never got to see his home again, she whispers. Victoria's smile turns savage. What was that? Feeling sorry for yourself? My father died thinking he'd lost everything. Good. Maybe this will teach you not to covet other people's property. The cruelty hits like a physical blow. Angela's composure finally cracks. Victoria sees the tears forming and moves in for the kill. Oh, now we get the Soba story. Let me guess. Poor little girl whose daddy filled her head with fairy tales about owning mansions. The crowd laughs approvingly. Pathetic. Pink dress sneers. Absolutely pathetic. Angela closes her eyes, fighting back 20 years of pain and rage. Victoria leans down again, her voice a vicious whisper. Your father was probably a drunk who gambled away whatever little money he had. Then he filled your head with lies about some imaginary inheritance. Stop. Angela's voice barely carries. Stop what? Telling the truth. Your whole family is probably a long line of losers and criminals. Margaret joins the attack. Look at her, Victoria. This is what failure looks like. This is what happens when people don't know their place. Angela remembers her grandfather's stories about building this estate, her great-grandfather's immigration from Virginia. 4 generations of Washington family history, rooted in this soil, all stolen. All denied, all mocked by these people who've lived on her land like parasites. Victoria circles her again. You know what the saddest part is? You actually believed your own fantasy. You convinced yourself you deserved something you never earned. This has to be mental illness. Harrison adds. Normal people don't construct these elaborate delusions. The federal folder feels heavy in Angela's hands. With one phone call, she could destroy every person at this wedding. Fraud charges, tax evasion, conspiracy. She has the power to send Victoria to federal prison for decades. But her father's voice echoes in her memory. Baby girl, always remember, power without mercy isn't power at all. It's just revenge. Have you ever been pushed so far that you wanted to use every weapon at your disposal? Tell me in the comments what you would do. Victoria mistakes Angela's silence for surrender. Finally accepting reality, ready to admit this was all a pathetic lie. Angela opens her eyes. The tears are gone, replaced by something much more dangerous: judicial calm. Mrs. Bradford, you mentioned that money talks. Damn right it does. And that you have connections I can't imagine, more than you'll ever see. Angela stands slowly, the black folder held like a weapon. You mentioned judges who golf at your country club. Victoria's smile widens. The best money can buy. Interesting. Angela's voice carries a new tone that makes Ray Coleman step backward. Because I've been wondering about something. What's that, honey? Angela opens the federal folder, revealing the golden seal inside. I've been wondering what those judges would say if they knew you'd been committing federal fraud for 20 years. Victoria's smile falters. Federal fraud? What are you talking about? Angela's transformation is complete. The grieving daughter disappears. The federal judge emerges. I think it's time we discussed your real problems, Mrs. Bradford. The federal seal gleams in the afternoon sunlight. Ray Coleman recognizes it instantly. His police training kicks in as he reads the official designation embossed in gold. Oh my God. His voice carries across the suddenly quiet lawn. Ma'am, I had no idea you were on the bench. Victoria's confidence wavers. On the bench? What bench? Rye removes his hat again, this time with obvious reverence. Mrs. Bradford, you need to stop talking right now. Why should I stop talking? Because you're insulting a federal judge. The words hit like lightning. Several guests gasp audibly. Harrison's champagne glass slips from his fingers, shattering on the flagstones. Victoria stares at the folder in Angela's hands. That's impossible. Judge Angela Washington, United States District Court, for the Eastern District of New York. Ray's voice carries cop authority. Appointed by the President, confirmed by the Senate, the crowd backs away instinctively. Even wealthy socialites understand federal power. Margaret grabs Victoria's arm. Victoria, we need to leave now. But Victoria can't process what she's hearing. Judge? She's a judge? Not just any judge, Rye continues grimly. Federal judges have lifetime appointments. They're essentially untouchable. The pink dress looks ready to faint. We've been yelling at a federal judge. You've been yelling at someone who could send you to prison. Ray corrects. The photographer emerges from behind a hedge, camera in hand. I got everything on film, the whole confrontation. Victoria spins toward him. Delete those photos immediately. Actually, the photographer stammers. I think I should preserve them, for evidence. Thomas approaches Angela respectfully. Your Honor, your father would be so proud. He always said you'd be somebody important. Thank you, Thomas. Angela's voice carries judicial dignity. You've taken excellent care of the property. More staff members emerge from the house. The head butler, 2 housekeepers, the catering manager, all approach with obvious difference. Your Honor, the butler speaks carefully. We've always known this was your family's estate. We've been hoping you'd return. Victoria stares in horror as her own staff abandons her. You all knew. You've known this whole time. Ma'am, we tried to tell you, the catering manager explains, but you never listened. Detective Coleman checks his phone. Your Honor, I've just received word from my captain if you need any assistance with this matter. Thank you. Detective, that may be necessary. The power dynamic has completely reversed. Victoria finds herself surrounded by people who now defer to Angela's authority. A well-dressed older man approaches from the parking area. Excuse me, I'm looking for Richard Peaton's client. Something about a property dispute. Victoria waves frantically. Richard, over here. Thank God you're... The man stops dead when he sees Angela. His briefcase falls from his hand. Judge Washington. His voice cracks with terror. What are you doing here? Angela smiles coolly. Hello, Mr. Peaton. I believe you represent Mrs. Bradford. The lawyer looks between Victoria and Angela like a trapped animal. That is there seems to be some confusion. Indeed, there is. Angela's judicial authority fills the space. 20 years worth of confusion. Victoria realizes her lawyer is terrified of her opponent. Richard, what's wrong with you? Peaton wipes sweat from his forehead. Victoria, we need to discuss this privately. Discuss what privately? Your legal situation, which just became very complicated. The wedding guests watch in fascination as Victoria's world crumbles around her. But Angela isn't finished revealing the full scope of her power. Richard Peaton pulls Victoria aside desperately. We need to leave immediately. Leave? Why would we leave our own property? Peaton's face goes ashen. Victoria, that woman isn't just any federal judge. She's Judge Angela Washington, Eastern District of New York. So what? So she handles major federal crimes, organized crime, public corruption, financial fraud. His voice drops to a terrified whisper. She sentenced 3 congressmen to prison last year. Victoria's world tilts sideways. That can't be right. It gets worse. Peaton checks his phone frantically. According to her court records, she's presided over dozens of property fraud cases. Her conviction rate is 97%. The color drains from Victoria's face. Angela approaches slowly, her judicial presence now undeniable. Mr. Peaton, I believe your client has questions about property ownership. Your Honor, I'm sure this is all a misunderstanding. Is it? Angela opens her federal folder completely, because I have extensive documentation of mail fraud, wire fraud, tax evasion, and conspiracy to commit theft of federal property. Peaton's briefcase trembles in his hands. Federal property? This estate includes wetlands protected under federal environmental law. Unauthorized occupation constitutes a federal crime. Victoria finally understands the scope of her disaster. Federal crime. 20 years of federal crime. Chief. Angela's voice carries courtroom authority with evidence of intent to defraud, systematic cover-up, and bribery of public officials. The wedding guests watch in horrified fascination as their host becomes a federal criminal defendant. Your Honor, Peaton stammers. Perhaps we could discuss a settlement. Settlement? Angela's laugh is ice-cold judicial steel. Mr. Peaton, your client just spent the last hour publicly humiliating me, threatening me, and attempting to have me arrested on my own property. Victoria grabs Peaton's arm. Do something. There's nothing I can do. She's a federal judge on her own property, which you've been illegally occupying. A commotion near the ceremony area draws everyone's attention. The groom approaches with his new bride, still in their wedding attire. What's all the shouting about? Michael Bradford asks his mother. Victoria points a shaking finger at Angela. That woman is trying to steal our home. Michael looks at Angela and freezes. His face goes white as his mother's. Judge Washington. His voice barely whispers. Angela nods formally. Hello, Mr. Bradford. Congratulations on your marriage. The crowd senses another revelation building. Victoria stares between them. You know her, too. Michael's hands shake visibly. Mom, we need to talk privately. Talk about what? 3 years ago, I appeared before Judge Washington's court. Victoria's knees buckle. What? Federal money laundering charges. I was facing 25 years in prison. Michael's voice cracks with emotion. Judge Washington showed mercy. She gave me community service instead of prison time. The revelation detonates like a nuclear bomb. She saved my life, Mom. I would have spent my best years in federal prison if not for her compassion. Victoria stares at Angela in complete shock. You're the judge who chose rehabilitation over punishment for your son, Angela confirms, who believed he deserved a second chance. Michael turns to the assembled guests. Ladies and gentlemen, Judge Angela Washington is the reason I'm free to marry the woman I love today. The irony is devastating. Victoria has spent the afternoon attacking the woman who saved her son's future. Your Honor, Michael, approaches with obvious reverence. I had no idea you would be here today. I should have invited you personally to thank you for everything. Angela's smile carries judicial mercy. Mr. Bradford, I came to observe how power treats the powerless. The lesson has been educational. And Victoria realizes she's been publicly humiliating a federal judge who holds her son's life in her hands. The complete reversal of power is now absolute. Michael Bradford steps toward the wedding microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, I need to make an important announcement. The crowd turns from the drama to listen, champagne glasses frozen halfway to lips. Victoria lunges forward. Michael, don't you dare. Judge Washington. Michael speaks into the microphone, his voice carrying across the entire estate. Would you please join me? Angela walks calmly to the small platform. Her federal authority is now unmistakable to everyone present. 3 years ago. Michael continues. I stood before this woman's bench facing federal money laundering charges that could have destroyed. NASP's ripple destroyed my life. Gasps ripple through the wedding guests. Some pull out phones to record. I was guilty. The evidence was overwhelming. I deserved prison. Michael's voice cracks with emotion. Judge Washington could have sentenced me to 25 years. Instead, she saw something worth saving. Victoria tries to reach the microphone. Michael, stop this right now. She gave me community service, mandated financial counseling, required victim restitution. Michael looks directly at Angela, but most importantly, she gave me hope that people can change. The crowd listens in stunned silence. Your Honor, I spent 200 hours serving meals at homeless shelters because of your sentence. I learned what real poverty looks like, what real struggle means. His voice grows stronger. You didn't just save my future, you saved my soul. Angela nods graciously, but says nothing. Michael turns to face the crowd. For the past hour, you've all watched my family treat Judge Washington with contempt, cruelty, and disrespect. Victoria's face burns with humiliation. Michael, please. You've watched us attack a federal judge on her own property. The property we've been illegally occupying for 20 years. The crowd shifts uncomfortably, realizing their own complicity. Judge Washington has the power to send our entire family to federal prison. Tax evasion, mail fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy. She could destroy us completely. Peyton whispers urgently to Victoria. We need to plea bargain immediately. Michael looks at Angela with obvious reverence. Your Honor, my family owes you everything. Our freedom, our future, our very lives. He turns back to the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, we are celebrating my wedding on property that rightfully belongs to the woman my mother just spent an hour trying to humiliate. The silence is absolute. Judge Washington. Michael's voice fills with emotion. I don't know why you're here today, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to publicly thank you. He removes the microphone from its stand and walks to Angela. Your Honor, would you like to address our guests? Angela takes the microphone with judicial calm. Mr. Bradford, thank you for your honesty. Her voice carries across the estate with quiet authority. Ladies and gentlemen, I came here today to reclaim my family's property. Victoria collapses into a chair. But watching your son speak with such courage and growth, I'm reminded why I chose mercy 3 years ago. Angela pauses, letting the words sink in. Peef. Justice isn't about punishment. It's about accountability, restitution, and change. She looks directly at Victoria. Mrs. Bradford, you've lived on my property for 20 years without permission. You've committed multiple federal crimes. You've stolen from my family's legacy. Victoria trembles visibly. However, continues, your son's transformation gives me hope that people can learn from their mistakes. The crowd leans forward, sensing a decision. Angela's judicial mercy is about to reshape all their lives. Angela hands the microphone back to Michael. I am gifting this estate back to your family, she announces with conditions. Victoria's relief is palpable until Angela continues. Mrs. Bradford, you will publicly apologize to every staff member you threatened today. Use Estags, Chief. You will establish a fund for grounds maintenance that honors the Washington family legacy, and you will never again treat any person as beneath your consideration. Victoria nods frantically. Yes, Your Honor. Anything. Additionally, Thomas will receive a formal recognition for his 40 years of faithful service. Chief, the Washington family crest will be restored to its rightful place, and this estate will host an annual scholarship fund for underprivileged students. The crowd watches Victoria's complete transformation from predator to penitent. Mr. Petton, your client will voluntarily report the tax irregularities to federal authorities. Cooperation now may reduce consequences later. Petton nods grimly. Nods. Understood, Your Honor. Angela surveys the assembled guests one final time. Ladies and gentlemen, remember this day. True authority doesn't demand respect through intimidation. It earns respect through service. She closes her briefcase with quiet dignity. Some people command a room without saying a word. Others scream and still command nothing. Angela Washington walks toward her car, leaving behind a wedding that will be remembered for all the wrong reasons and all the right lessons. Final question for you. When you have real power, do you use it to elevate others or diminish them? Share your thoughts below and subscribe for more stories about justice in unexpected